Good evening. I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard. Today is November 16th, 2022, and you're watching The Pipeline. Thank you very much for joining us. I love that intro music. Always psychs me up, gets me going. How about you, Nigel? Does that get you pumped up?
Just feeling the adrenaline pulsing through my veins as you speak. Play it again.
We're going to talk about it. Play it, boys. No, don't do it. Also, we got with us, a little less enthused by the music, I think. Corey, does it not work for you?
Well, I only have one pose.
You have one pose.
That's it.
Okay.
He's got his own music.
It's inside.
We got a great show today. Danielle Smith, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith fires Dina Hinshaw, Alberta's Chief Medical Officer. Gassed her. She's gone. Big, bold move, one that's been expected for some time. But a lot in the media just can't believe she actually did what she said she was going to do here. We've also got, I'm sure you've seen it in all the legacy media, a lot of the lefty politicians and journalists all pushing, not just for a return of masking, but to make masking permanent and mandatory at least half of the year, if not all year round. What the hell is driving this? They seem to really miss COVID. They really just miss the good old days when we're all in this together. And they want to make us all in this together with mandatory masking again. We're going to talk about what the hell is behind the big push by the left and the media and the political side of them to make mandatory masking mandatory at least half of the year on a permanent basis. And Justin Trudeau is overseas for the G20 meeting. And, he had a little run-in with Chinese Premier Xi Jinping. Oh, I think I said that right, didn't I?
I can't get that one.
Is it Xi Jinping? I kind of make it all one word. I'm going with it. Take the win while I can. Move on. He had a little run-in with him, and then he was asked by the press later if the Chinese genocide of the Uyghur Muslim people is genocide. And he said no. Not in so few words, but in a very Justin Trudeau navel-gazing way. He said, no, China is not genocidal. But you know who is genocidal? Canada. Canada's the genocidal ones. I'm unaware of the death camps that are being operated maybe somewhere up in Athabasca. But, quite just a typical Justin Trudeau way of representing Canada on the international stage, going around making excuses for the Chinese Communist Party and blaming Canada for much worse. Before we get into it, though, we got to thank my favorite sponsor, the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. You know what we should do today? Let's let Corey do that. He hasn't done it in a while.
What, the
Corey,
CSSA?
You got to do CSSA.
They're
today.
a fantastic group. It's Tony Bernardo runs that. It is the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. If you own firearms, collect firearms, want to buy firearms, or just respect people who own firearms, you got to have a membership with these guys. I mean, there's all sorts of resources like any other association. Videos are on there. And, of course, keeping you up to date with news on firearms and lobbying to stand up for your rights, to keep possessing, owning, doing whatever you like with firearms, because we've got a government that wants to take them away from you. So, again.
And how easy is it to sign up?
It's very easy. Go to cssa-cila.org or just Google Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Take out a membership. It's an investment in your rights.
Speaking of an excellent membership and investment in your future, if you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, shame on you. Go to westernstandard.news right now. Click on membership. It's only $10 a month or $100 a year for unlimited access to all Western Standard content, not just the video stuff like us jawing here, but the about a dozen reporters we've got right across Canada providing some of the best journalism in the country. In fact, some of the only journalism that's not subsidized by Ottawa. So if you want bailout-free, homegrown, Western independent news, you got to go to westernstandard.news, click on membership right now. Okay, let's get into it. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, when she was running for the leadership of the United Conservative Party a few months ago, she really made Alberta Health Services, AHS, one of the whipping boys of her campaign. The media focused mostly on Sovereignty Act. But I think in tandem with that was stuff around the mismanagement of healthcare in the province, not just around COVID itself, but the fact that you've still got to wait bizarre amounts of time for specialists, that we spend incredible amounts of money on healthcare in Alberta and get pretty damn subpar outcomes, as most provinces do, but we're even worse than some in terms of how much money we spend for the results. And but Dina Hinshaw isn't AHS herself, but closely related. Dina Hinshaw, though, next to Jason Kenney, the face of the government's COVID response, she was saying she's not interested in taking advice from her, not going to listen to her when she was elected premier. She says she's going to be firing her. And she actually did it. I know we're not surprised, but I think the reaction from a lot of people does seem to be almost a bit of surprise. Nigel, should people be surprised? Because this is a big move. I don't think any of the other chief medical officers in Canada have been fired, especially so summarily. And what message does this send?
Well, you see, you'd say, Derek, people are surprised. That is because they do not know Danielle Smith, and they do know a whole raft of politicians, including some conservative politicians, who have said one thing on the campaign trail, and then as soon as they get a chance to do something about it, it just gets quietly dropped. I think that you are going to see a lot from Danielle Smith. Think about the things that she did campaign upon. Think about the things that she has already said, the positions that she's taken. I am not surprised. I don't think deep down, I'll let you speak for yourself, but I suspect that maybe you're not as surprised. No, right. Okay. I don't think Cory is as surprised. No. But, you know, she talked about relieving Miss Hinshaw of her responsibilities and putting in somebody else. Well, she did it. And that is, I think, I am hoping, I am really hoping that this government moves to take control of its health ministry, which is for $22 billion is the Ministry of Health in this province out of a total budget of $50 billion. So we're getting on for nearly half, and it's just been sort of done by remote control. You know, an example of something I would like to, I hope that that the Smith government takes this on. A group of bureaucrats made the decision that if you were not vaccinated, there were certain types of medical procedure for which you were just automatically disqualified. Now, there's a particular case in point that I'm thinking of. I was writing about it the other day. I'm not a medical person, so I can't adjudicate whether individual A or individual B should receive a procedure. But I can say, as a journalist, that it is totally unfair and unjust and morally indefensible that something like that should be the grounds of discrimination and a provincial government not act upon it. It is, I am so hoping that they take that particular issue on.
Okay, so I want to bring it back to Hinshaw here. Yeah, I don't think any of us are surprised, but I think there is even though I'm not surprised, I am kind of like, what? She actually did it. So there's even a part of me that's like,
sometimes you might just want to avoid the trouble and just put it off, perhaps. But as Nigel's saying, Danielle's acting on what she'd said she'd do. And I mean, I'll play a bit of devil's advocate. I feel a little, I wouldn't know as far as feeling sorry, because I don't feel a lot of things, but still, Hinshaw was in a difficult, untenable position for a long time. I mean, she'd catch the flack when anything went wrong, and you know, likewise, if things went well, the government would take the credit.
Yeah, and if things went well, it was Kenny. If anything was bad, it was her.
Yeah, and she was always put forward, you know, and no matter what decision came, if they were lightening up on restrictions, then the pro-restriction people would be all going, oh, she's just a patsy for the crazed premier and whatnot. Or if she cracked down on restrictions, then, of course, the anti-restriction people. So she's had, I think she's probably breathing a bit of relief after all of this. Whether she did well or didn't do well, she did become that symbol, though, like you said, of the head of the restrictions and what was going on. And if you want to put that behind us, we want to put COVID in the rearview mirror. Part of that is putting Hinshaw in the rearview mirror. And I think that's a lot of the reason, is the symbolism even more than her actions, I think.
So you got into this a bit, Nigel. Smith has promised, okay, everybody promises to fix healthcare. I have never seen a politician in Canada for any party at any level of government who hasn't promised to fix healthcare. If we elected dog catchers in Alberta, I'm sure everyone running for dog catcher would still promise to fix healthcare. But Smith had a rather more, she actually had some meat on the bones of what she was going to do in her leadership campaign. And it begins with some demolition. not physical demolition of blowing up hospitals, but a demolition of the structure of AHS. They talk a bit about what she was talking about in healthcare in the campaign, and where's it gone so far? What are we expecting to see with her reform of AHS?
Well, one of the things that she was campaigning on, you may recall, was a health voucher for those expenses that aren't normally covered by the system. So that's one thing that now that we've seen what she's done, I have some confidence that will come along next. She's also taken a very strong position on the masking. A lot of people who voted for Danielle Smith didn't want to see the government come in with a heavy.
Get ahead of us. Masking is next.
All right,
get ahead of
masking
us.
will come to masking, won't we? So, yeah, I think the whatever she campaigned on, I think you're going to see. So look for that, and look for, I think, the government of Alberta taking control of this ministry, whatever that looks like. It is just too big to hand off to the bureaucrats. The elected people have to be responsible for it, and not just say, well, we give them money and they do their best with it.
Well, actually, I'm not skipping Cory, but I'm going to give Cory the first dig at the next part. So let's go to masking. That's obviously pretty tightly tied in with all of this stuff. I think everyone's noticed over the last week, this quick, out of nowhere, the volume turned up on the maskers. They're back. I thought we beat them. They're gone. No, they haven't given up. You're seeing Twitter profiles pop back up wearing masks. COVID is in existence. There still is COVID, but it's not a pandemic anymore. It's an endemic, and it's the fall. There is respiratory illnesses in the fall, as there always is.
Have you noticed how they've rebranded that, by the way? They don't talk about COVID anymore.
Yeah.
They talk about viral respiratory illness.
They're kind of trying to make it a part of a suite of other things that have always been with us.
Yeah.
And the media, unions, whose members would benefit from not having to go to work or something if we could get back to lockdowns, they've been ratcheting up calls for permanent masking. I'll draw attention in particular to one column. Do you have the name of that columnist from the Globe and Mail? Maybe not.
Not okay. Off the top of my head.
There's a staff columnist for the Globe and Mail based in Vancouver.
Marsha.
I don't know. Yeah. But she wrote a piece calling for permanent mandatory masking every fall and winter. She said something along the lines of, well, this time of year, we put away our sandals and bathing suits and we bring out our parkas and boots and our masks. It's just a part of the way it should be. And anyone who is opposed to that doesn't care about the lives of the children and is a sociopath. Well, that's going to soften people up. That's going to get people on side saying everyone who disagrees with...
Oh, I've been having those discussions. I want to kill children, apparently, according to the people.
Oh, yeah. I want my kids all dead. Now, it's really ramped up. You've got chief medical officer in Ontario recommending masks. I think Quebec just did too. Here in Alberta, well, we don't care about our chief medical officer anymore, but Premier Smith said hard no. But you got the unions banging the drums, calling for this stuff. And it's all ironic because now they're trying to cloak it in the kids because the number of kids being admitted right now with respiratory illnesses, seasonal respiratory illnesses, is up very significantly. Why is that? Why would it be right now that COVID's pretty much in the rearview mirror, why would kids be in with respiratory illnesses? You know why it is. It's because we've locked them down for 2 years, and kids who would normally be slobbering over each other, sharing each other's germs, getting gross but natural immunities, didn't get them. And that's why they're sick. They're sick because we locked our kids down, deprived them of 2 years of schooling, and they don't have the immunity necessary. So now they're getting sick. So what's the answer? Masks. And of course, right behind that will be more lockdowns. I'm going to give you the first shot of this, Cory. Why the hell would the unions and large segments of the legacy media be pushing so hard for mandatory masks when they know follow the science. They know what the science says, and the reason for these kids getting sick is the lockdowns that they themselves supported.
Yeah, and the ability of masks to stop this is negligible at best. We have the numbers. If you look...
Oh, and just in case YouTube's watching, masks are wonderful. Yeah. Masks are great. Masks will save you from everything. In fact, masks stop me from getting cancer. So that's just in case you're watching, YouTube censors.
But if you look at it, you search the headlines. 2011, hospitals overwhelmed by flu outbreak, children's wards full. 2013, hospitals overwhelmed by flu outbreak. 2017, hospitals overwhelmed by... This happens every 3 years. Mm-hmm. And even if the lockdowns had nothing to do with it, it's a cycle that comes. And masking didn't make a difference with it coming or going. It runs its course and it goes on. And it doesn't cause, yes, some vulnerable children. It's dangerous. I mean, we can't understate that. But the masking thing, I see a lot of it as a political trap. Because you lay that trap, especially here in Alberta, for example, where the unions and Gil McGowan dearly want to get Daniel Smith to lose the next election. They will lay every adverse outcome on Smith and say it's because we didn't mask. Even if there's no basis for it, it doesn't matter. That's what they'll do. And they're pushing it as hard as they can for that reason. And the same thing with Doug Ford, every other part where they want to push this because it's a political move. And the other part is, for governments who do impose the masking, it looks like you're doing something. People can see it. Look at all those nice, pretty masked faces. Even if it isn't doing something, it looks like you're doing something. Mm-hmm. So they like that. It looks like visibly, see, I care. I'm saving your children and your grandmama and whatever else out there. But it's a whole political push. It has nothing to do with the science.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two real reasons they want to wear it. One is mass hypochondria. We've now got a whole society of hypochondriacs. Mm-hmm. The unions wanted it maybe for a few reasons. One is just the pure partisan political parts of it. You know, Gil McGowan, Alberta Federation of Labor, the government unions, they want to at least say they have it so that they can lay any adverse effects at the feet of the government here. Another is fear, because when you see masks, it means, oh shit, something has gone down. Things are bad again. Things are bad. And if you're afraid, then you're more likely to accept a lockdown. And you know who really loves lockdowns? People who don't have to work anymore. And that is people working for the government, people working in white-collar government jobs who don't have to go through the pain of going to the office anymore. Although the biggest reason, I think, and you touched on it, I think, is social solidarity. It's a sign, it's almost a badge, it's an amulet, and it shows you that you're a part of this. People wore masks willfully, even though they're like, yeah, I know this little thing does. Masks are wonderful. They don't do anything wrong. They save you from everything. But people who maybe not believe that, though, they still wore them because it was a show that I'm doing my part. You know, it's the equivalent of putting a ribbon on your Twitter profile. You know, something goes wrong and I stand with X. You know, it's like a hashtag. The mask became a hashtag. I wanted to ask maybe you more about the media specifically, though. Why do you think so much of the media is just out of nowhere jumped on this bandwagon? We went straight from, all the other issues of the world to all of a sudden masking. It's back.
Well, it's a process story, isn't it? I mean, it's something that everybody thinks they understand. Certainly, just about everybody has an opinion on. So it's red meat for journalists who perhaps find it rather difficult to make an interesting story about some of the things that actually happen in government.
But this Globe and Mail columnist, I don't know. She seemed pretty out of it. I feel like she believes in it. I don't doubt her sincerity that she believes that we're sociopaths if we don't wear masks.
If you're prepared to write that people who won't mask up are sociopaths, yeah, you're a true believer. And there are plenty of people in the media drinking each other, drinking in. Well, they drink each other's bathwater. There's also a way that journalists enter into the profession that sort of comes through woke journalism schools into woke newsrooms, and there's an awful lot of peer pressure to conform to what seems to be the general consensus.
Yeah, but look, she's already a lefty. She's old. She's not a J school grad. She's old.
Well, it's been going on since for a very long time.
Yes,
she can be.
But what I'm trying to get at is what spurred the sudden obsession in newsrooms with columnists and reporters. What spurred the sudden obsession with oh shit, I forgot about masking. Yes, everybody get behind masking. This came out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, a part of it is that you get it's an easy story. It's a process story. You've got somebody prominent like the chief medical officer of health in Ontario saying this. Everybody thinks they understand it, so everybody wants to write about and comment on it. When we talk about diversity in the media, they never think about diversity of opinion. And these newsrooms and these opinion pages have been self-selected for decades to just put a certain point of view in. Like, I think, I can't speak for you gentlemen, I can speak for myself. I say, I got no problem with somebody who wants to wear a mask. It's a free world, it's their choice. If that makes them feel better, do it. Just don't ask me and don't try to tell me that should be my choice if I don't agree. That's not the way your typical newspaper reporter, media columnist, TV anchor thinks about these things, because they have been telling each other that masks are good for so long, they know no other way to do it. It is just it's a consensus that they've come up with.
I think they just got lonely for the mask.
Yeah,
it's like a teddy bear. There's still some adults who sleep with a teddy bear. It makes them feel safe and cozy. And I think
Go to
some
town.
people
Wear a
just miss it.
diving bell on your head for all I care.
Yeah,
Just leave me alone.
You want a face tattoo? Get a face tattoo. Just I don't want to wear a face tattoo.
No, it's,
I'd almost rather tattoo a mask on me than wear one at this point. But
At least you still breathe.
that'd be a hell of a face tattoo.
You'd never have to worry about sitting next to anybody on a bus ever again, too.
There you go. Like that'll just help with social distancing.
Yes,
So you're
yes.
I ain't sitting
don't
with
make
that guy.
eye contact.
That's right.
Okay. We'll switch gears a bit here. So Justin Trudeau in Cambodia, are they in?
Phnom Penh.
Yes. Yeah, Cambodia. So he had a little run in. He had a side meeting with Chinese Premier Xi Jinping, and I don't think any of us are great fans of Xi Jinping. He's not our communist cup of tea. But it was a one-on-one, and I think it appears that this was supposed to be a closed-door meeting. I mean, Reagan met with Gorbachev, and Kennedy met with Brezhnev, but they would, there's a confidence to these meetings, and if something is allowed out, it's agreed in advance. Otherwise, you can't do diplomacy, even with enemies. You have to maintain confidence to be able to do diplomacy.
Exactly.
And Trudeau and his office apparently leaked this whole damn meeting, resulting in a bit of blow-up. Xi Jinping corners Trudeau and gives him what. I couldn't really tell from the tone of his voice because I can't understand Chinese Mandarin, but that's neither here nor there. But Trudeau was holding a press conference, and one of the journalists said, asked him for his opinions on the genocide of the Muslim Uyghur people. People who are rounded up into concentration, re-education camps, I think the Chinese communists call them. Asked them, would you call that a genocide?
Would you call them residential schools, perhaps?
Trudeau might call them residential schools.
Well, then he would call it genocide.
Yeah. If the Chinese call them a residential school, then they might finally call it genocide. I think we're going to need. Actually, let's play the video.
Everything we discuss is then leaked to the paper. That's not appropriate.
而且我们也不是那样进行的，没有。
And that's not how the way the conversation was
如果
conducted.
有诚心，咱们就用一个互相尊重的态度来进行很好的沟通，
If there is
否则这个结果就不好说了。
if
In
there is
Canada, we
sincerity
believe
on
in
your part,
free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on, and we will have
一些
to
可以
continue.
建设性，但是
创造条件，创造条件。
Let's create the conditions first.
好，好。
That's the Prime Minister having a very serious and important talk about the Uyghur people. So you've got these people rounded up into concentration camps, mass murder against these people from a totalitarian communist regime, and Trudeau cannot bring himself to use the G word. But He has no problem throwing around in Canada, where very bad things in many cases took place to Indigenous people long time ago, but in some cases not as long ago, but very bad things that I don't think a reasonable person would call genocide. I think we would there'd be other terms for it. That's a particularly loaded term.
Well, if you're going to call that genocide, what are you going to call the Holocaust? You got to come up with a new word.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like when you say if we're far right, if we're fascists. Well, then you need a whole new word for fascists and far right. So if the residential schools are genocide, then we need a whole new term for what we've traditionally considered genocide. Good point, but what the hell do you think he's trying to do, threading the needle here? That Canada's a genocidal state, but communist China's mass murder of the Uyghur people is not. Is he trying to make a case here that maybe it's bad, but it's not genocide?
Well, I mean, we all know what's really up here. China is a superpower. It has become one in the last 20 years. It's if you irritate the Chinese, it's going to have a consequence. He doesn't want to irritate the Chinese. He doesn't mind irritating people here in Canada who still have some affection for language and meaning, but to actually call the Chinese government out and say it's what you're doing is genocide, that's a step he's just not prepared to take. Good Lord, 80% of the shelf space in the large retail stores is stuff that's made in China. I mean, the economic implications of the relationship between the two countries are just enormous. He's afraid of them. Maybe he should be. If he wasn't before, he will be now.
Actually, that might be the best point. Actually, if there is a reason for him threading the needle like that, I think maybe that's it. Maybe he was just trying to be diplomatic, because he, by leaking his conversation with Xi Jinping, he blew that. He blew that pretty bad. That's, we've all had, we're in journalism. We've had meetings in confidence with people we don't like, but you don't break confidence, because you break confidence on one, you burn a source. Well, no one talks to you again.
That's right.
Sure, you get one good hurrah out of it, but that's kind of the end of the road of anyone's willingness to talk to you. Do you think they're actually? I think Nigel actually maybe raises an interesting point that he will not call it genocide because it would just be bad diplomacy with China.
Of course,
is that fair?
This is a long-standing thing. If you look, Parliament did a motion on declaring that a genocide. Every Liberal member voted in favor of declaring it, except for the cabinet and the prime minister.
They abstained, or they were absent. Yeah,
but there was 260 some MPs, which included a whole pile of Liberal MPs as well, said yes. But Trudeau and the cabinet excused themselves so that they wouldn't have to address it. So they've hidden from this for some time. But there's a couple of issues going on. We kind of understand why he dodged it. But this is what grated me. This is our leader. This is a national leader. And to be so gobsmacked, I mean, that video, as you saw, like, he was a deer in the headlights. He was terrified. Oh, my Lord, somebody hasn't written me talking points. What on earth am I going to do? This man is incapable of thinking on his feet. And that scares me as a person who is being, managed by him as our leader, as well with the breach of diplomacy. The other thing that he did, if you want to weaken yourself, no other leader is going to talk to that man in confidence again. You don't know what he's going to leak. I don't think they took him very seriously to begin with, but as per usual with his international trip, he has managed to embarrass us and reduce our status on the world stage yet again. And a lot of it could have been very easily avoided with some diplomacy and thought, but he seems incapable of either.
I couldn't help but think of Zoolander when I saw him speaking here. I don't know. Did you ever see Zoolander?
No, I didn't. But
okay, it's a 90s classic. So I'm a 90s kid. I remember growing up with this. Corey knows it, I guess, here. And it's funny because it takes place in a very similar part of the world. I think Malaysia, or at least the end of it takes place in Malaysia. And so there's a bunch of guys in very similar kind of national costumes in Malaysia around. And there's like world leaders at this thing. And he's like this
male model.
Inexplicably dumb male model, and when he talks, it just sounds like Zoolander. It's beyond. At this point, I actually kind of like Trudeau's international visits because they're funny. Like I want more costumes. I want more, pious bows. I I want more of this stuff. I used to be embarrassed by it, but at this point, I like it. It's funny.
If it didn't
funny.
hurt us on something that's so damn important, it would be good dark comedy. But the reality is it does have some serious consequences if we want to actually be a figure in the world stage.
You know what? I'm not sure it matters. Newsflash. No one cares about Canada. Canada is obsessed with what the world thinks about Canada, but you know how much the rest of the world thinks about Canada? About as often as we think of Denmark. We know it's there. We have some kind of preconceptions about it, but it's not terribly important. And I hate to break it to everybody, but Canada's just not that important. And it's unfortunate. But we're obsessed with what the world thinks about us, but I'm not sure they really think much about us. Unfortunately, when they do think about us now, they see Prime Minister Zoolander. So
it doesn't help.
Yeah.
At least he didn't dress like a Latin.
No, not this time.
Well,
So I think they locked his tickle trunk before he could come out.
well, that's another Cory Morgan classic right there. Cory Morgan's tickle trunk. Well, as long as he doesn't go to the World Cup in Dubai, because there he might bring out the alive.
Yeah.
Okay. And any predictions for World Cup?
I predict.
Let me guess. England.
England for the cup. We say it every time. One day it'll be true.
Hope springs
I
eternal.
always support England. I just never bet on England.
I've got the advantage of being able to support and bet on Germany. Yeah. Corey?
I'm unfortunately indifferent and still watching the NFL season. So
You're not even going to fake it with us, eh?
no, I won't. I'm sorry. I won't insult you with that.
I have to fake it for some things. Honestly, I don't watch hockey outside of playoffs. I don't even fake it. I'm just like, I don't know anything until you're in playoffs. I don't know anything that's going on.
Yeah. So there's no office pool on this one.
Oh, actually, we did the office pool on Euro Cup. So, and much to my shame, England won that one. So, I
should have bet, I guess.
I think we're going to need a World Cup pool.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll do it.
Okay.
Well, at least I know there'll be two guys.
Get administration on it.
But you're going to have to share an England prize if it was to ever somehow come true with Dave, I'm sure.
I'd be split it with him.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. And thank you, all of you, for joining us today. I appreciate your time. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, make sure you go to westernstandard.news, click on membership, sign up today for unlimited access to all Western Standard content. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the show, and God bless. Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Without the CSSA, our gun rights would have been taken long ago. These guys are on the front lines helping to draft smart and intelligent firearms regulations and legislation in Canada, and more importantly, educating the public about how we keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people. You become a member, it's absolutely worth every penny.
Here's an update on commodity prices around Lethbridge for today. Cash barley has dropped to $4.46 per metric ton, feed wheat is trading at $4.70, and corn is lower at $4.55 per metric ton. In the milling wheat markets, December Minneapolis futures dropped 12 cents at $9.62, with local hard red spring bid for December movement at $11.85 per bushel. Moving on to canola, January futures are lower $2.90 at $8.91.70 per ton, with delivered values for December movement at $20 per bushel. In the pulse markets, nearby red lentil prices remain at 34 cents per pound, and yellow peas are trading at $13 per bushel. And in the cattle markets, December live cattle added 50 cents, up to $151.78 per 100 weight. For more information on pricing or FOB farm options, give me a call at 403-394-1711. I'm Matt Busicum at Marketplace Commodities. Accurate real-time marketing information and pricing options.
You can become a Western Standard member for just $10 a month or $99 a year.